Yo, what's going on guys? Arekkz here, and today I want to talk about The Division 2. With E3 just a couple of weeks away now and Ubisoft set to give us our first glimpse of the game during the show, it's safe to say I'm pretty excited. I mean, E3 is an exciting time of year regardless, but I genuinely can't wait to see what Massive have in store for us this time around. With that being said, while information is pretty sparse at the moment, there are a few things I wanted to round up so as to ensure that we're all on the same page ahead of E3 next month. So with that being said, welcome to another episode of Rumour Roundup. If you do enjoy this and you do find it helpful, then a like would be super appreciated, and be sure to comment down below and let me know what you're most hoping to see in the reveal next month. Now to begin with, let's talk dates. Last week, during Ubisoft's earnings report, they revealed a few details on the release plans for the fiscal year of 2019. According to the report, Ubisoft plans to release 3 games by the end of March 2019. One of those titles is The Crew 2, one is an as yet unannounced title, which people are speculating may be Splinter Cell in light of the recent Walmart leak, and the third and final one is The Division 2. So following the announcement next month, Division 2 is, according to that report, going to release somewhere between the end of this year and the end of March 2019. And if you look back at when The Division 1 launched, that was on March 8th, it makes sense that they consider targeting a similar window. Being one of those MMO-light, persistent world, games as a service type games, there are a few obvious competitors within this space, Destiny being one, and even if the game in its current state isn't everyone's cup of tea, it's still a big title with a planned content update around September-October time this year. And of course the other being Anthem, which still doesn't have a date, but is looking likely that it will launch somewhere in Q1 2019. Now, when Division 1 launched, it was quite possibly the best time. It was a pretty clear window without any real competition in that space, so it gave the game room to breathe. Obviously, if Anthem drops in a similar time, there'll be some interesting competition, but regardless, going by the fact that they plan to reveal at E3, I think March seems like the most obvious window. However, the release window wasn't the only thing being spoken about during the earnings report. Following on from there, Yves Guillemot, the Ubisoft CEO, said that the various development teams are working to have more content available for players on day one than the first game. In addition to that, post-launch, new content is going to be added quickly and in larger quantities to keep players satisfied. He said, and I quote, "We were surprised a little bit by how fast people consumed content in The Division 1. And this is something I mentioned in the video the other day when I spoke about the Avengers project. This new emerging genre, this MMO-light, games as a service, expanding world genre that is growing in popularity, it's an amazing genre because it gives players a world they can be a part of, a world that continually expands and gives players things to chase, kind of like an MMO would, only without being quite so life-consuming. The problem a lot of developers have though is that while this genre is interesting, you have to be able to meet the content demand. If you can't keep up with the pace, then people struggle to remain engaged, so hearing that they have plans in place to accelerate the content rollout is definitely encouraging. Additionally, another part of the game that the investor call touched on was end-game content. Ubisoft is well aware that the original game's end game was lackluster, and is planning to have a more engaging end game for players in the sequel. Ubisoft CEO Alain Martin said, and I quote, "Very clearly, what we call the end game part was something that The Division 1 could have improved, and we believe that we've got it now in The Division 2. Now, I do imagine that's something we're going to have to wait a while to find out more about. Endgame isn't typically the sort of thing they speak about at things like E3. I expect a broader focus on the reveal itself, the setting, the most obvious changes and improvements, but again, the fact that they've acknowledged it as something they needed to work on, that's encouraging. And as a reminder, Ubisoft's E3 press conference is taking place on June 11th. Both myself and TwoSixNine will be over in LA for E3, so I'll be sure to bring you guys all the Division news as and when it drops. However, moving on from there, while there isn't a great deal more to cover, I do want to look back on something that cropped up last year, and that's the player survey, since some of the questions asked in that could well hint at the direction they may be going with the sequel. At the time it was sent out, it had questions both about the current game and some more broad questions that, when you read between the lines, clearly indicate they're gauging interest in certain ideas for the sequel. The first one was a question about survival, more specifically whether players would be interested in a last man standing mode for survival, in other words, Battle Royale. Now I appreciate it sounds like everyone and their uncle are turning to BR these days, but again, it's a popular genre. It's a genre that for many years was very niche and typically came from mods, but now in light of the success of games like PUBG and Fortnite, Battle Royale is a very real consideration for a lot of companies. Activision just revealed the upcoming Call of Duty Black Ops 4 is going to have a BR mode, Blackout. EA are set to reveal Battlefield 5 this week, and while there's nothing to suggest they have BR in the pipeline, I'm sure it's no doubt a mode that has crossed their minds. And for The Division, Survival already has the makings of a BR game mode. It just didn't work around a last man standing model, so that is a very real possibility in the sequel. The other question pertained to location. It asked where players would be interested in going in the future. Would they like to remain in New York and continue the story, go to a new city following the current events, or a new city in a completely different time? Now, it's fair to say that while Manhattan was exceptionally recreated in Division 1, I feel like everyone has seen the city and knows it like the back of their hand, so it's a no-brainer really to think that the sequel will take us somewhere else. There's a story still left to tell, but that doesn't have to continue in the current location, that's for sure. Additionally, some of the early Division 1 tech demos showed woods and forests, and while those were more so to demonstrate their tech, I am genuinely hoping for some more variety to break up the urban jungle that will inevitably call home. But outside of that, there's not really much more to cover. There are a few job listings that have gradually been cropping up over the year. Some came before the game was confirmed, thus hinting that it was in development. Meanwhile, more have cropped up following the game's anniversary and sequel announcement. A lot of them are pretty standard roles you'd expect, filling in spots in what is supposedly a massive team, no pun intended. According to a report earlier in the year, the team that is working on the sequel is one of the biggest teams Ubisoft have ever had, and that's certainly something you need for a game of this caliber. There was also a job listing for a monetization designer, and while the notion of microtransactions often scares people, it is worth calling out the listing expressly stated that it was seeking an elegant, fair and non-disruptive solution using these mechanics. But honestly, at this stage, looking at job listings is just clutching at straws. We're so close to the reveal now, and it's honestly something I am incredibly excited to see. Massive have learned an incredible amount since the Division 1 launched, and if they apply that learning to the sequel, and they're able to meet the ongoing content demand, then I can see myself sinking thousands of hours into the sequel once again. But for the time being, that's pretty much it. If you've been out the loop, then that's what you need to know. You're now up to date and ready to see what they have in store for us next month. Keep it locked, because as and when more information does surface, then I'll be sure to keep you guys up to date. But until then, thanks for watching, take it easy, catch you next time, peace out.